Welcome back to New Rockstars. I'm Whitney Van Laningham, and although episode 5 of Moon Knight appeared to show Marc and Steven's journey through the Duat in the form of a psychiatric treatment facility, I think we may also have gotten our very first glimpse of Jake Lockley in the flesh. This show has been teasing his appearance in slow, subtle ways since the beginning of the series, and today I'm going to break down exactly where Jake Lockley appears in Moon Knight. Fans have been speculating since the first trailer drop that although Jake Lockley didn't appear anywhere in it, his character may be a surprise reveal at some point this season. In the comics, Jake Lockley is a rough and tough cab driver with mad connections to the seedy criminal underbelly, and I think that Moon Knight is going to draw heavily from his character in the Welcome to New Egypt comic run for this character. In issue number 9 of the comics, Marc explains to Steven that although the two met in his childhood, he doesn't meet Jake until later on in his life. But in the show, it seems like neither Marc nor Steven have ever encountered Jake. Despite a number of clues, they're not the only personas that share the body. Let's quickly break down the evidence of Lockley's presence in each of the previous episodes, beyond the foreshadowing of Marc's tri-split reflections, doubled shadows, and different costumes. In the very first episode, when Steven's boss Donna calls him a rascal and says she didn't know he had taken a crack at asking out one of the museum tour guides, he replies,
"I didn't know either."
My first thought when I watched this scene was that Marc must have set up the date on Steven's behalf. But although you could argue that Marc was just trying to get his buddy Steven laid, I'm not sure that Marc was actually the identity who set up the date. Marc is clearly still in love with Layla, and despite divorcing her and pushing her away, it's obvious that he still cares about her deeply. Why would Marc want his body to hook up with a museum tour guide if he's still in love with his ex-wife? Jake's identity wouldn't have an emotional connection to Layla in the same way that Marc would, and could have asked her out while he was in control of the body. When Marc blacks out while fighting those men on the rooftop in Cairo, he transitions once again, and when he comes to, he's actively stabbing the older of the two men as he and Steven both accuse each other of brutally raising the body count. It's clear that neither one of them was responsible for these particular slayings. Steven is too kind and hopeful to straight up murder people like that, and while Marc is the Fist of Khonshu, he seems to be more of a reluctant hero than a willing participant. His main goal is keeping Layla safe from Harrow and Khonshu, and we've heard him plead with Steven to let him take control of the body in order to prevent civilian casualties. In contrast, the identity shedding blood in the streets of Cairo seems to have no issue with getting his hands dirty. At the end of episode 4, Marc blacks out once again after being shot and wakes up in a psychiatric office. After fleeing Harrow, he finds Steven in a hospital room trapped inside a sarcophagus. But before they run into Taweret, the hippo goddess, the two moon boys pass yet another room with a lone sarcophagus inside. This sarcophagus is standing upright and shaking, but unlike when Steven was stuck, whoever's inside isn't screaming to be let out, so both of them pass by without investigating. But many fans, including myself, began to speculate that this might be Jake. Because we see Steven and Marc get their own separate physical bodies in the afterlife, it stands to reason that if this is Jake, he would have his own body too. If Moon Knight's third persona was Lockley inside that red sarcophagus, he could have broken free shortly after Marc and Steven met Taweret, possibly during all the screaming. With Marc and Steven on the bow of the funerary boat, the guards who found him would think that they had caught up to Marc, but Jake would face the consequences for his escape. Let's state the physically obvious. Neither Marc nor Steven had cuts, bruises, or bandages on their face when we saw them screaming together at the end of episode 4. And in fact, after this, we never see either of them that beat up again. Even when Steven wakes up in Harrow's office later on in the episode, he doesn't appear to have a scratch on him. And when Oscar Isaac's beat-up persona wakes up in Harrow's office, Harrow tells him that he's been starting imaginary fights in the hospital. Could Jake have attacked the guards who tried to return him to Harrow, causing them to beat him? Is that why he has the bandage on his nose? In the comics, Jake Lockley is not the one who wears a bandage on his nose during the Welcome to New Egypt run. Marc Spector is. But Marc does receive his broken nose from a couple of guards who assault him and force him to undergo electroshock therapy in issue 1. When he wakes up, his nose is broken and his eyes are bruised, just like Oscar Isaac's in this scene. I think that Marvel borrowed this element from the comics and used it as another way for us to tell the difference between these three characters. Our friends at the Epic Hero Shop have some of the coolest t-shirts and merch. When the Thor Love and Thunder trailer dropped, they asked us for some help with zooming and enhancing, and we're able to recreate the trucker hat that Thor wears during his training montage. And you can get one for your very own training montage. They have a new Spider-Man No Way Home shirt with Peter Parker's face, and who the hell is this? It's both clever and the only one of its kind. A very cool shirt to wear to the theater to see Multiverse of Madness would be the Wanda variant of the Unusual Couple shirt. It's an augmented reality shirt, so you can use your phone to unlock a video layer on the shirt. They've got all kinds of great Marvel, DC, and Star Wars inspired gear at epicheroshop.com. Sign up for their newsletter at the bottom of their webpage to get notified about merch drops. Be your own hero! But besides that, this person also sounds slightly different than Marc to me. Although he only speaks a couple of words at a time at the beginning of his talk with Harrow, by the time he speaks his first full sentence, his accent doesn't sound like Marc or Steven's. Not only does he speak a little bit more gruffly, it also sounds like there's a twinge of a New York accent here.
They must pay you a lot of money in this place. You're really good.
In the comics, Jake is a cab driver from New York, so that could explain the new separate accent. As he says that line, we see Oscar Isaac grab that sharp pyramid paperweight and brandish it towards Harrow, prompting the doctor to hit the panic button to call his guards. Notice the way that Oscar Isaac scans the room before grabbing that pyramid as soon as he realizes that Harrow isn't a doctor. Not only does he look around the room confusedly as if he's never been there before, he quickly grabs the pyramid once he gets his bearings. When Marc was in this office in episode 4, his first instinct wasn't to outright stab Harrow. It was to flee. And although Steven throws a glass of water in Harrow's face as soon as he awakens in the office later in the episode, he immediately apologizes for it. Like I said earlier, if Jake is the most violent out of the three, it would make sense that his immediate reaction was to fight. When the guards arrive moments later to shoot him up with what I can only imagine is liquefied quaaludes, it mirrors a scene in issue 4 of Welcome to New Egypt. After turning down a sleepover with a nice lady, Jake is jumped by 2 guards with gigantic needle, who, assuming he's Marc Spector, attempt to drag him to the hospital. We don't see Oscar Isaacs again with a messed up face in this episode, so if this character is Jake Lockley, he's still likely back in the hospital wing of the Duat, which is actually incredibly convenient for both Marc and Steven. Despite the beauty of this place in the afterlife, Marc doesn't want to be trapped in the field of reeds, and Steven certainly doesn't want to be a frozen sand sculpture forever. If they need help getting out of the underworld, however they manage to do it, it'll be useful to have a guy on the outside of the dead world. I'm not gonna lie, there are a number of ways that this next episode will go down, but there's one thing I'm fairly confident about. When we finally formally meet Jake Lockley, his third set of hands are gonna be a crucial part of stopping Harrow, and he might be the key to rescuing either Marc, Steven, or both from the afterlife. Follow me on Instagram and Twitter at Whitney Puppy, follow New Rockstars, subscribe to New Rockstars for more analysis of everything you love, and thanks for watching. Bye!